Today we're going to tell you a little bit about what we built at BPX using some Snowflake native tools. Just a little bit about BPX and our relationship with Snowflake. We've been on Snowflake for about 5 years. We have right around 900 users across 3 environments. And today we're going to tell you about a challenge that we made migrating from an Azure SQL Server instance as our sort of enterprise data hub to Snowflake. So if you're sitting in this room, that's probably a problem that you've had to solve recently. And if you haven't, it's a problem that you may have to solve soon. Another aspect to keep in mind as we're talking through this is not only did we move all of our data to Snowflake, we also sort of enhanced our data model to contextualize our data through a new architecture that some of you might be familiar with called data mesh, leveraging data products. So as we're going through this presentation, keep in mind our previous model was on SQL Server, very much letting everybody access raw data, sort of come up with their own version of what they wanted to get out of that data, applying logic to it. Which is still leveraged in our new environment, but we are also embracing the concept of data products so that there's one answer to every question, hopefully instead of many. So today we're going to show you how, in going through that journey, how we let our users know where to find the data they know and love from their old platform, but also how to leverage those data products, where to find them. You'll learn in just a few minutes that we have a fairly complicated business, but through data products, we're able to serve the needs of many of our customers. So without further ado, I'll get on with it.
Hi, I'm Brett Rennie. I've worked at BP for a little over 10 years. I've worked in a lot of different kind of verticals within BP. I've worked in the development space. I've worked in the operations space and kind of the technology organization. On the development space, worked in site selection, rig planning, drilling completions type stuff. In the operations space, drone-based methane detection, frac hit prediction, stuff like that. On the tech side, data platform things, master data and data products. And I tell you all this to really tell you that sometimes finding the data that you need to use is almost harder than actually solving the problem. Which is why I'm really excited to share with you this solution today.
And my name is Chris Shepard. I'm data platform lead at BPX. I have not been at BPX quite as long as Brett. I've been only there just under 2 years. I'll just tell you a little bit about my background. Been working with Snowflake for going on 8 years now. In various capacities, primarily in consulting. This is my first kind of foray into oil and gas, but I've served roles from data analyst all the way up through now platform lead, and along the way I've touched on data engineering and architecture. So I use this tool myself. We might have built it a little bit selfishly just to help some of us who are not as familiar with the business or newcomers to the business learn more about some of the technology. But primarily, as you're going through this presentation, we're trying to let our users know where to find data on the platform and how we want them to use those magic data products. So a little bit about BPX. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of BP, and we're the onshore entity for BP here in the United States. We operate in the basins that you see here, primarily in Texas, a little bit into Louisiana. Brett and I are out of Denver, Colorado. That's where our sort of corporate headquarters is. But we partner with talented minds to drive innovation across Colorado, Texas, and Louisiana. As you can tell, we have a fairly complicated operation, so there's a lot of different types of data coming in different frequencies, lots of different data products. So BP, we primarily use data-fueled, tech-enabled solutions. And another thing to keep in mind is we're a little bit more nimble than our parent company, BP. We try to have more of an entrepreneurial mindset and be a little bit more flexible. But all of these components can be everything that we're about: safety, entrepreneurial spirit, and tech focused, all comes back. It's all fed by data. It all comes back to data on our platform, and that's why we love Snowflake, because it can do everything we need to meet those needs. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more. I've told you so far a little bit about how why we built DataXplore, to get into more of the details. So like I said, the data on the platform, not only did we, just to remind you from the opening slide, we're not only moving all the data to Snowflake from our SQL Server solution, which I'm sure many of you have experience with, is a challenge in itself. We also have a paradigm shift in the data model. So all the folks that know all of those source systems really well, all of our power users that know exactly how to get what they need out of their raw data, now we're asking them to go and consume it from a data product, again, with the goal of creating one answer to a question instead of somebody asking a question and getting whoever's report serves that need, going to that data product. So that comes to our second point of data products. And then on top of that, it's a little bit more complicated. So talking about those power users, and really anybody on the platform who wants to build, we want them to be able to understand what they're impacting when they touch a view in the middle, or change a dynamic table, or store procedure. That has downstream impacts. And we're not always, especially in our old model, it was kind of the Wild West. It might have just impacted your report. It might have impacted 20 reports, but we had no really good line of sight to determine that. So using these simple out-of-the-box tools, which I'm excited to show you about in just a moment, we were able to determine those impacts. And also, another thing this does, and I apologize, we don't have a good visual for it here, but you'll see another one in the next slide, is for those analysts and developers that are building with raw data, if they're able to see if that raw data is used in a data product downstream.
Yeah, so a little bit about the architecture here. As Chris mentioned, we kind of went from one big landing spot, people reading on raw data, to data products and a data mesh architecture. So as you can see here, a lot of our raw data lands directly into the domains via API, Snowpipe, Lambda, data share, replication, stuff like that. From there, you have kind of the experts in each one QC the data and create data products based on kind of what's important to the business. So a couple examples are, if anyone's worked in SAP, they know how kind of incomprehensible a lot of those tables can be. Don't really have names that anyone would recognize. So in this model, folks like finance could take the CKST table and transform it into a cost center or something like that. Another example is the rig schedule. So for our business, kind of planning your development for the year is very important. A lot of our planning software allows for, infinite numbers of possibilities. And if you're not familiar with the kind of software that they use or the data behind it, you may assume, or wrongly assume, that one of the plans is the actual plan that we're going to do that year. So with this, the development folks could make, say, a rig schedule data product so that the entire company knows this is our plan for the year, and we can plan for emissions, production, budgets, things like that. So in this, you'll notice the enterprise data lake. That's where all of our data products essentially land. And they are the source of truth, right? So they're human readable, and because they're human readable, they're AI ready, right? So this is a big dynamic shift for a lot of our power users. New users love it because they're looking for a rig schedule, they can find a rig schedule. Our power users are used to combining 10 tables. It takes them a little bit of time to kind of come around to it, but they're seeing the benefits now too. And you see from the enterprise data lake, you can connect to reporting, app integrations, all kinds of things with our one answer for whatever our business question is.
So now you know a little bit about where we're heading, and we've told you where we were before, which is a little bit of a mess. And now we're going to talk about some of the focal points along the way and that we've had to address along this journey. So why did we choose to Streamlit? We could have used any number of things. Lots of things were discussed. We discussed, using a Lambda function. We discussed several different, setting up a separate server and so forth, putting some Angular on top, putting some clean code that was a better, a really rich UI experience. But we ultimately ended up with Streamlit. So just to kind of let you know where we're at on this, we were kind of mid-migration and we were getting lots of questions, lots of challenges from the business on, well, you're kind of force-feeding us these data products. We're very interested in that. It's like Brett said, some of the newer users who didn't already have existing reports were they love it because they don't have to know all the SAP technical jargon. They can just join to those human readable tables. But we were starting getting some sort of growing pains in there, so we needed something quickly. We knew that we had plans to go to Elation, so anybody familiar with that, that's sort of a data contextualization tool. It can do a lot of what this does, but not all of it. So, but we didn't have Elation, so if your procurement moves at the speed that our procurement moves, we had a long way to go before we were going to get Elation and get it up and running in a way that it needed to work. So this was something that we were able to get up and running in a matter of weeks and not months, and that is a tremendous feat for a company like ours. So that's part of the speed to value that Streamlit gave us. And then we have a team of 5 FTEs and it's a fantastic group of contractors that support this platform. So I mentioned we have 900 users across 3 environments. That's a whole lot of Teams messages to answer specific questions on the platform. So we needed somewhere that these folks could go, and we needed something that our small and nimble team could support. So we were able to build this Streamlit solution completely on Python and SQL, languages that our team knows very well how to support and troubleshoot and so forth. And then all-important security. So like I mentioned before, we considered going with a solution that would be hosted on a separate server. That would be separate connections, separate Active Directory groups, lots of more management for our small team, which we didn't want to do. So our enterprise security team was very pleased when we shared with them that they were going to have to do nothing because we were just going to use our existing RBAC with existing Snowflake roles, just grant those roles to the Streamlit, and then folks could see exactly what they can see in the platform just in the DataXplore tool, and we could show them some of that metadata that they were missing. So, the way we're set up is through a squad model, so you might have folks for those of you familiar with oil and gas, there's a midstream, and so some of those folks that can, folks in operations cannot see midstream data because those are other operators on that pipeline, so that we'd have a competitive advantage. We're not allowed to show them that. But we can show them the metadata about that to see if they could potentially leverage that data after speaking, with data governance and so forth to make sure they could access it. But this is something that they hadn't had before. They had it in some sense on the previous model. And this, again, was part of the growing pains, but just to highlight the security, that's something that we really loved about this, is we didn't have to do anything else. We just used the existing roles that exist on Snowflake. So I told you, I keep harping on how easy this solution is, and I just wanted to prove it. So this is a kind of a screenshot of the task. So if you follow the diagram here, this really is it that we built. It all comes off of native Snowflake tables. So if anybody, most of you here, if you've even had just a small amount of experience developing on Snowflake, you're probably familiar with the account usage schema inside of the Snowflake database. So that has all your tables, columns. It's got several other things in there, but you can see here in this store procedure, we have this particular one running at 3 UTC, which I think is 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's sort of when we expect all the code for the day to be done. And there are opportunities to make this faster, but this really does give us everything we need. So every day, the user gets a clean snapshot of everything across all 3 environments, all the tables and views that have been created, and they have the potential to leverage. So if you follow the diagram there, we just take that object metadata, that's very simple, and we put that into a table, which we call Object Explorer. And then we just join that very simply to the object dependency table, which also lives in the account usage schema. And that gives us two very powerful pieces of information. That gives us all of the, not only all of the objects and their columns on the platform, but it gives us all the interdependencies. So if you're not familiar with this object dependency view, it's great because it's bidirectional. So you can query it to see what objects might be impacted downstream by making a change. But it also tells you for some of our users that are interested in using raw data, it tells them where they might find that raw data in a data product on our data mesh model. So we have those two very powerful pieces of information, then we just simply put a little bit of Python code on top of that in Streamlit, and that gave us a very clean UI. And that's where we sort of sat for a while. And then we were very interested in, what's this Cortex capability with Snowflake? So we started playing with that a little bit, and we were able to take this existing, point that LLM at existing tables, and I'm excited to show you towards the end of the presentation just how little code it takes to put a powerful chatbot on top of this information. So instead of users having to click through, which Brett will show you in just a moment, sort of the screens, where we were there for quite a while, we're now able to have users say, where is my rig data product? And it just brings them right to it. So it saves them several clicks, and we're able to leverage AI, which everybody loves these days. So I'll kick it over to Brett here to walk through some of these screens.
Yeah. So, we talked about kind of moving from a raw data model kind of over to data products, and this is a perfect example of one of the features of this, which is we built in here the ability to say, okay, give me or provide the exact name of the table that you were using, and we'll point you to kind of where it's landing now. And because we have domains, it's not always straightforward. This, for example, is land information. So land information could probably fall in a few different places. It could fall in finance because there's a financial component. It could technically fall in operations because you need to continuously produce on a lease to keep it, or it could fall under development because you lease some land and then you develop it. So if somebody was looking for this, this points them directly to the domain that they'd be sourcing that from in the new environment. So kind of the second feature of this app is to identify data products that are useful. So if you're looking here, we're an oil and gas company. We produce oil, gas, water, NGLs, technically. But gas, a big component of our revenue. So if a user, any user, wanted to see what data products are out there that are gas related, for instance. Well, so right here they have well gas measurement. So think of the meter on the wellhead, what kind of the raw readings are. You have your allocated gas, which in production accounting terms, you kind of take some pluses and minuses from either gas feeding in or coming out, and you get some information. Now, oddly enough, the difference between kind of measured and allocated can point to problems with your meter. You have certified gas, or what you've sold. So we say maybe with our imperfect metering on site that we produced 100. It gets all the way down to the plant, and they said, well, actually, you produced 101. Well, so now we can kind of check that a little bit. And the difference between that and your allocated is, problem with your allocation system, potentially. And then you have deferment, which is kind of your target versus what you actually produce, which can show you kind of an underproducing well. So very quickly, someone just put in 3 letters, gas, and they found all of these very useful data products.
And I'll just comment quickly on this new icon you see. So you can see that's created in the last 2 weeks. Something really cool we were able to do in Streamlit was just add a quick if statement to that. And we were able to just drop emojis in. And I like using emojis. So that was kind of fun. I'll show you that in the demo.
And so here's another feature that we have. And this is very useful for a couple different things. One is kind of data product understanding. You have a lot of people used to the raw. They see this new data product. It's scary. They don't know what to think. How did you come up with this information? Well, here you can say it's made of all of these sources, for instance. And on the other side of it, we have these data products. We have teams, a large amount of development teams, working, all around each other. We don't want to step on anyone else's report or anything like that. So, for things like change approval, you could come in here and say, you have this data product, you're looking to change it. Have you done UAT with these groups that are using your data product? And it's very easy to see here, and it's almost like a checklist. This type of thing has kind of reduced our incidents, made everything a lot more clear on who's going to be impacted by what changes will come in. And like I said, this is really great because we have a really large amount of developers. They're kind of running in all directions. So a tool like this that can kind of show them what they're going to be impacting is very helpful.
And I just want to add one thing that some of you who are familiar with the Snowflake platform might be thinking you just use the lineage tab inside the object on Snowflake. Just want to let you guys know that we beat Snowflake to the punch on this by about 3 weeks. So we've developed this not knowing they were going to roll that out. So, but it does allow users to see lineage without hopping around. They can stay in the same Streamlit experience. It's just another tab over. So now I'm going to show you what you might be interested in from this presentation is the Chatbot component. So we built that on native Snowflake Cortex. I've told you a few times that it took very little to build this, and it allows users to get very close to what they're after without having to click through several screens. Because some of the screens you saw, lineage and so forth, it takes a little bit of time to get down into those layers in the application. So again, the theme of this is easy to build and maintain. So that's what this is. So if you just give me 1 second, I'm gonna move this over. So this is my Snowflake environment. If something looks a little bit off, we did not do this on the production version. We made a copy of it. So I'm going to show you a little bit about it here. So because it was slow, I went ahead and asked it a question already. I just asked it, where can I find SAP data? And so for this, and I'll go into some of the code a little bit thereafter, but you can see just how simple this is. So up here, you'll see, this is where we started. So this is just like you would click through these different pages, say like identify data products, determine data lineage, or just find your data in Snowflake. So I've just taken here and say, where can I find SAP data? And all we did to add this, and I told you I put emojis in there, so here they are. But and I'll pop the hood on this in just a second and show you how this is built. But I went through a few different iterations of this. So when we first built this, we started off, I was really into the DeepSeek models because I thought they generated code a little bit better. But it turns out that that was a little bit overkill for what we're trying to do here. So I ended up using Mistral Large. And you don't have to handle as much of the output. For anybody who's used DeepSeek, it gives you like a really long explanation of why it did it and it has a very conversational look at it. So Mistral Large does exactly what we need. So we have, in the production version of this, we have it actually kick out a sample of the data, but because this is a demo, I didn't want that to mess up on us. So, or show something we shouldn't, so I didn't have it kick that out, but in this case, I've omitted that part. So this is where can I find SAP data? Then I can ask questions, on the data product section, which is where is the rig data product? So then it shows you, it kicks out a query, it tells the user a little bit, it tells you what to query, it gives you a little sample query, and then it tells you what it's going to give you out of that. So what I have up here is the queries that it returns. And so this is actually the query for the rig schedule. So let's see what that gives us. You can see, again, on sample data, it kicks out all of our, just to reiterate what the enterprise data lake is, if you're thinking about the medallion model, this is kind of like our gold data. So that's our data product. And so I'll show you in just a minute how I was able to get the model to know that it should only give me results in the enterprise data lake. But you can see that it gives you some pretty useful information. I mean, obviously the row counts in these are 0 because they're views, but it gives you a database, schema, object, column name, and that's just enough for a interested user to go in and find whatever attribute they might be looking for and start to query against it without having to write several complicated queries and do all the logic that we've done on the back end for the DataXplore. So now I'll kind of, I'll save you from this raw example. It'll do the exact same thing. That's a spoiler alert. But this is all it is. It's about 270 lines of code and heavily indented, so probably, it's just not that much code, and that's what's so impressive about it. And this is all I had to import for the chatbot. So this part up here is all just how we built. This is, Plotly is how we build that cool lineage graph, and which I was very impressed about how quickly Streamlit can produce that. But then on top, layering the chatbot on top, this is all we had to import, just snowflake.cortex is Cortex. There's some functions and types. And then this library here is just to clean up the results I was telling you about. We tried Claude and DeepSeek, which have very long explanations that the user is very likely not interested in. So this is kind of all the code that makes the Streamlit. It's interesting, but I won't walk through all of it. What I was very impressed with, this is at the end here, this is all that it takes to do the chatbot. So all we did is, this is the header, so that's kind of not fair. That's just the header of the Streamlit, but this is all it really takes, this section right here. So you can see I'm using Mistral Large here. That comes native with the Snowflake Cortex library. And then I gave it a long prompt. I won't read it out to you, but this is how I was able to tell it. When a user asks about a data product, like I did on, I believe, this screen. When the user asks about a data product, it knows what to do because you give it that context. And it's a very simple, human, readable context. It took me about 5 minutes to write. And then when I was saying, hey, if they're asking for like, where can I find data from a source, and it interprets all that context, then it knows to look at raw underscore, because that's how we have our schemas named. If it comes in as raw data, it's raw underscore. And then you specify your model, and it puts out I told you this is where I was trying to clean it up because it has all this think and Claude, but really with Mr. Large, you could have skipped all this altogether. So, in just 270 or so lines of code, you can get this very powerful tool built on Snowflake native resources. That's all we have for you today.